Okay, Molly, I'm going to hand co-host over to you so that you can let any late entrants in, if that's okay. And then we will, as I say, make a start. So yeah, welcome everyone. Last event of the year. Apparently it's our 36th, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining these calls throughout the year. As before, we will record the call for people who aren't able to join us today, and that'll be up on the Pimento video link, which you'll find on YouTube under Pimento Agency. We will be back with a full program for next year on January the 13th. I'm really hoping today we do get round to questions. I know we always promised to get round to questions and rarely managed to make that possible, but today we have just two speakers, so hopefully we will do. I'll be very quick now. Quick update on the world that we inhabit at the moment. For those that aren't aware, Professor Chris Whitty and Sir Patrick Vallance have been quizzed by MPs, I think as we speak this morning, on the response of the UK government to the pandemic. I do hope that they're not going to start to be blamed, but there you go. UK restrictions will also be progressively eased in the new year, according to Michael Gove, so that's all very reassuring. Thousands of people across the UK made history yesterday when they were vaccinated. And one of those individuals, brilliant this, you can't write this, was a guy called Will Shakespeare, who comes no less from Warwickshire and actually has a passing resemblance to the bird himself. So that was, I think he was the second person to be vaccinated. Still 300 years old, just shows you. Then there's other bit of good news, which is that the Oxford vaccine will hopefully get approval between now and Christmas. So we'll have two different vaccines out there, consumer choice. Joe Biden has promised that 100 million Americans will get the vaccine in the first 100 days of office. God, do they need it. And last kind of things really to draw to your attention was the Queen was seen out and about last night, and you probably saw the royal family being dragged out for the first time since the pandemic started. Bit of royal protocol, bit of news to, to try and build a bit of positivity around where we are with COVID. So all in all, I think it's, we've got to this stage. We're still here. Congratulations, everyone. We're still here. And it's been a tough old year. Today, we're going to be looking to find out how the pandemic has impacted on financial resilience of business. Most of you as business owners will be only too well aware of how difficult it's been. But more importantly, we're going to look at the future. And we've got some really interesting survey data from the tracker that's been undertaken and managed over the last 12 months by Savanta. We're also going to take a look at your feedback to the recent Pimento members survey, warts and all. Total presentations will be about 41 minutes. And then we're going to turn over to you for questions. So if you've been holding back on asking a question for the whole of the year, now is your last chance to do so. So let's get started. Let's welcome back for the fourth time, back by popular demand, Oliver Wright, who leads the Public Division of Savanta. Oliver is responsible for all client research in central and local government, education, charities and public health, as well as the company's political polling. He's a member of Savanta's executive leadership team. Prior to Savanta, he was a managing director at leading communications and public agency, policy agency, Comres. And Savanta, for those that don't know, as I'm sure you probably all do know, are Pimento members. We've worked with them for many years. They're the UK's leading insight, strategy and research consultancy. So great to have you again, Ollie, with us. I'm going to share the screen. Ollie is going to take us through his presentation, and then we'll come back to the second half of the presentation today with Annabelle. Ollie, over to you.
Thanks, Stephen, and good to be back. And hello to those of you who have seen some of my previous presentations through the year. It has been a little while since the last presentation I did, and it feels like a lot has happened, but in many ways it also feels like not much has changed. So we're obviously approaching the end of the year now. I'm going to give you some of our latest insights from two perspectives. Firstly, from the perspective of businesses, and then secondly, from the perspective of the general public in terms of how their year has been and what maybe 2021 starts to look like. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Right. So first of all, businesses. Obviously, winter is now here, and it seems to have sort of sprung up on us. So I think it's an appropriate point in time to sort of have a look back and see sort of whether people's business owners and senior business decision makers' attitudes have changed at all and experiences through the year. And the answer really is not much. Consistently, we've seen businesses reporting a negative impact on them due to the pandemic. We split these slides by small businesses and medium and large businesses, but around 3/4 of both reporting a negative impact due to the pandemic. And there are significant declines in income and sales when we probe on that a little bit further. So a real impact, a sustained impact, and it only remains to be seen kind of how businesses emerge from those as 2021 gets underway. Impacts on business and income and sales, unfortunately, has had an impact on employees as well. We see that, particularly for medium and large businesses, there have been significant increases in redundancies, both as a result of COVID, but also Brexit. But the redundancies attributed to COVID seem to be more widespread. So 70% of medium and large businesses say they have increased redundancies as a result of COVID, and half of small businesses say the same. So once furlough ended, I think we all saw increases in redundancies across all sectors, and obviously unemployment rates starting to rise. And alongside that, I think there's a lack of that sort of lack of optimism for the future in many ways. I think confidence in government strategy remains very low, really. So minorities of businesses of all sizes say they're confident in the government strategy. And similarly, it's kind of across sector as well. There's no one sector that does think that the government is doing a great job. And I think what's interesting is that we do see a consistent downward trend since the start of the pandemic in March on the right-hand side there. There was a small uptick after the Eat Out to Help Out scheme, and maybe some businesses started to feel like they could get back to normal a little bit. But then as cases started to rise and more tiered restrictions were introduced, then again, declines set in. So there really is a sort of lack of confidence and trust in what the government is doing in terms of how they're dealing with things. So what does it look like in terms of recovery? Are there any sort of green shoots maybe for the future? Well, for some yes, but for some no. So around 3/4 of businesses saying they're confident that they will still be operating by the end of next year. Now, obviously that's a clear majority, but it does mean that 1 in 4 aren't confident. And that is a very similar proportion that we saw all through the pandemic. So it's not as though we've got to the end of the year and suddenly more businesses are feeling more optimistic. They're not. We've still got 1 in 4 who have got very, very sort of worrying times ahead from their perspective. And when we look at things across sector, there's general pessimism for the year ahead. So we asked businesses kind of how they felt about their own business and their industry sector that they're in to change over the next year. So do they think that things will they grow, or will they decline? And only in IT, tech and comms was there any sort of sense of stability at all. All of the other sectors were much more likely to be reporting declines over the next year for both them and their industry sector. And the likes of arts and entertainment, maybe unsurprisingly, maybe most effective, but even kind of professional services, financial services, their outlook is at the moment anyway, looking fairly bleak. Alongside that, I think an interesting finding for us was that actually businesses are reporting, or a lot of businesses are reporting, drops in productivity over the year. So home working has obviously become the norm recently, and it's driving longer hours in many ways. Businesses are reporting, so about half of medium and large businesses saying their employees have been working longer hours over the last 6 months. But similarly, around half have also said that their business has seen a decrease in levels of productivity over the same period. And there's a lot of conversations around the pros and cons of working from home. But to me, this says that there needs to be a balance and some real thought given to kind of if home working continues, how do businesses address the productivity issue? And what that means is that while small businesses are seemingly thinking they need to maybe focus more on survival, looking at their current and future challenges, very much focusing on customer demand, profits, cash flow, when it comes to larger businesses, I think they're sort of more acknowledging of the fact they need to focus on things like employee well-being, and also sort of IT and cybersecurity, if remote working is going to become more of the norm. And then the final section with businesses is, what's the future of the workplace? It very much links into those productivity slides and challenges for the future. We've all become very, very used to chatting on the screen with colleagues, with clients in big forums like this as well. Is it going to continue, or are we going to start seeing some reversion to sort of previous ways of working, returns to office, return to travel? Well, I think it's going to be mixed, basically, is the expectation from this point onwards. So actually, we asked businesses about travel and their expectations over travel going forward. And actually, when we ran this particular question at the start of October, the majority of businesses were already kind of looking to restart travel, both domestically and internationally. So businesses very much seeing the benefits of meeting with colleagues, meeting with clients, even if that means sort of longer travel. But I think it's going to be kind of slightly maybe muted and offset by the fact that actually, when we ask about what workplace changes businesses are going to see in the future, it is flexible working hours and it is increased working from home. So it's not as though businesses are ruling out travel, they're not, but I think that's going to be kind of happening alongside a more flexible working pattern and routine. And aligned with that, we do see a lot of businesses, particularly the larger businesses, reporting that they are likely to reduce their physical premises going forward. I know we at Savanta have reduced down our office space already, with the expectation that we will increase remote working next year, even when we can return to the office. And the one thing which comes out of this really in terms of spend for next year, where will spend be focused? Alongside marketing, it's IT. There's going to be more IT spend in terms of both software, hardware, and cybersecurity, which I think is an interesting outcome of this, but not surprising if companies are having to adjust to different ways of working. We also asked something about 5G. Is this something which is going to be a priority for the year ahead? I think smaller businesses, it's maybe less so, but medium and larger businesses, the majority of those are planning to invest in 5G in the next 12 months. Again, potentially sort of recognizing the need for this alongside more flexible and remote working patterns. Having said that, though, there is a strong recognition that this year has been tough on employees as well as businesses, and very much the majority, particularly of larger businesses where maybe it's harder to manage, very much a recognition that they need to do more to be supporting employee well-being in the future, particularly I think if there are sustained sort of growth in remote working. So, just to sum up those three things very quickly, I'm not going to read all that text, but I think in summary, it's been a challenging year, but I think those challenges are expected to go through into 2021, and maybe that's not surprising, but there's actually quite limited optimism for the year ahead, and that point about 1 in 4 businesses doubt their survival is still quite a striking one. Things will continue though, and I think certainly for larger businesses, there is a recognition that things like productivity, employee well-being are going to have to become more of a priority over the year ahead. And finally, in terms of the sort of impact on the workplace, I think some of these changes are here to stay, basically. I think we saw early indications of that earlier in the year, and the mindset of businesses really hasn't changed, but businesses are therefore going to have to adapt the way that they work, and particularly around kind of IT and their systems. Moving on to the view from the general public, again, we've been tracking this through the year. This chart shows levels of worry, so whether people are at least what we described as very worried currently by the pandemic It peaked early on in March, April time when this was all very new, and we didn't know what was going on. But broadly, it's interesting that the level of worry largely reflects the waves of the virus. So it did decline in the summer and was lowest around the end of August, as we were kind of getting used to maybe getting out and doing more, and not many people having the virus. But then it rose again through the autumn and the winter, to maybe not as high as before once we knew more about it, but still kind of reflects the shape of that graph. Basically reflects the shape of graphs you see of the virus on the news all the time. So worry does correspond with when the virus is more prevalent. We tracked approval ratings through the year related to how well you've handled the outbreak of COVID-19. A consistent decline for everybody. Stephen, you mentioned Chris Whitty and Patrick Vallance getting quizzed by MPs. Their approval ratings have held up the most, but they're still not as high as they were. But I think the interesting ones there are that Boris Johnson, Matt Hancock saw quite rapid declines through the spring and early summer, and that has very much dipped into negative territory and stayed there. So quite a lot more people negative about both of those individuals than those who are positive. Alongside that, we saw convergence of voting intention for Conservative Party and Labour Party, very much neck and neck now as we move into next year. And we also sort of asked general favourability ratings towards each of different government individuals. So Rishi overall stays pretty well regarded, but he tends to be the good news messenger a lot of the time. At the bottom there, Priti Patel, consistently low favourability rating, not really changed through the year. But again, you can see the likes of Boris Johnson and the government overall, which is the pink line there, dipping very much into negative territory. So like businesses, there seems to be kind of limited confidence amongst the public in how the government is dealing with the pandemic still. And interestingly as well, as the year has gone on, we asked people basically, how much do you think that the government is, or how well do you think the government is doing in terms of the support they're giving to various different businesses or groups of people or industries? And around half now say that they don't think that the government has done enough in terms of support they've given to sort of the leisure sector, the self-employed, small businesses, and even the NHS as well. And that sort of perception has grown through the year rather than sort of stabilised in any way. So looking ahead, is there any optimism? Well, it's fairly muted, to be honest. And similarly to businesses, the general public are not feeling particularly optimistic about their economy, or the economy of the country, the NHS, their personal finances and so forth. Anything below that sort of horizontal line there with the date shows that more people are actually pessimistic than optimistic about these things. So the economy obviously has the highest levels of pessimism now. And then finally, looking at the vaccine, and it's all kind of being talked about as, this is the changing point. This is when things will start to get better. But of course, people have to take the vaccine in sufficient numbers for that to actually be true. This stat on the left-hand side there, this was on the ITV News last week. So you may have seen it, but we're basically reporting that, okay, the majority of people are likely to get the vaccine, but you've got around nearly a quarter saying that they're not likely to, and another sort of 1 in 10 saying they don't know. So there is a bit of a communications challenge here for the government, and it doesn't really matter whether they make it mandatory or not. The second and the third bars there, it doesn't really change people's views. There is skepticism and there is a little bit of worry. And when we dive into that, it's not just your kind of anti-vaxxers, that movement. It is people with genuine worries, I think, over the speed at which it's come through and a lack of maybe understanding of any long-term side effects. So the government has a communication job on its hands to convince those people in sufficient numbers. And that was it. That's my run through of kind of where we are. I think, you know, a challenging year, but there's a long way to go before people start feeling a lot more optimistic. And that is true of businesses and it's true of the general public.
Well, thank you very much indeed. We're going to come back to questions so that we know how much time we've got, if that's okay, after Annabelle's presentation.
No problem.
But thank you very much indeed for bringing us right up to date with where we are. As ever, some illuminating and interesting facts there, which we would encourage you to share with your clients. I will be sharing the presentation after today. Just obviously, you know, share with confidence, but equally to obviously make sure you credit Savanta with all the hard work they've been doing on that survey. Annabelle, I'm going to just do a brief introduction, if I may. As Pimento's sort of grown up in the last couple of years, we decided it was about time we outsourced the management of our annual membership survey. And we've invited Annabelle and her team at Q&R to basically manage this year's survey. Q&R have done an absolutely brilliant job, and I'd like to thank them for all of their work on this project, and not least of which, obviously, they acted very, very quickly and have delivered some really interesting insights. By having it independent of Pimento, I hope too that actually it has both more authority, carries more weight with you, and gives us really clear direction in terms of the future development of Pimento and our services to you, the members. So we're going to be illuminating that today and sharing that with you. For those that don't know Annabelle, Annabelle Dunstan was the founder and CEO of Question and Retain. Their business helps businesses to listen better to their clients, employees, stakeholders, and members in our case. They're an insights agency that gather real-time data with a very much an emotionally intelligent approach. Their pulse check goes beyond simple survey software. Annabelle is uniquely qualified in this particular chosen career. She started out her life as a lumberjack's assistant before becoming a ski guide and then a sailing instructor. Perfect, I think, to set yourself up for the world of research. She then joined the marketing team at Gulf Air, promoting the Gulf States as a tourism destination at the time of the first Gulf War. Clearly, this is somebody that you need to stick close to. And Annabelle then joined Lefebvre Communications and cut her teeth in the world of PR. After the birth of her first child, she became a TV presenter. After the birth of her second child, she joined Three Monkeys Communications and was appointed their MD 3 years later, overseeing growth of the award-winning top 50 PR consultancy, £7.5 million revenue with 75 consultants. She then left the PR jungle and pursued her own business, initially with a business called Gain and Retain, which is designed to help businesses grow through attracting and developing talent. And secondly, and more recently in 2012, Question and Retain, adding measurement tools to the mix. Our clients today include LNER, Imperial College, Pizza Express, and of course now Pimento. So Annabelle, welcome once again. We've seen you a number of times this year. It's been great to see you both popping up on our calls and supporting us across the year with your insights and your pulse checks. I'm going to say nothing now. I'm going to leave you to present, as I say, the warts and all insights. There's a lot of obviously data that goes behind this survey, so I think you're just going to do the top line today. If anybody would like further information, then I would suggest you contact your partner director who can take you through the findings.
Fabulous. Thanks, Stephen. It feels a bit like this is your life. I'm just expecting the red leather-bound book to be passed over. Thank you, and thanks for having the time today to let me share the findings. And yes, it is just going to be a one-page. My Christmas present to you all is not a 50-slide deck, which I have shared with the Pimento leadership team. I'm going to give you a one-pager. So here's the ta-da moment. It's a PDF with just 8 boxes to go through. So let me just check that you've got that on full screen. Can you confirm you can see that, Stephen?
Coming.
Yep.
Not quite. I think you might have to go out of it again like you did earlier on and go back.
Gosh, does that happen? Okay, let's share screen.
It's Apple stuff. There you go.
Well, there we go. You can see it now. Excellent. So we went out to all 258 members and over a very short period of time, 12th to 27th. So our motto is less is more. We tried to reduce the number of questions we went out with. We really wanted to take the pulse of the membership. So we were in the field for just 2 weeks and we encouraged the PDs, the partner directors, to gently nudge you. So thank you for that work, partner directors, and also thank you for those that took the time to respond. It's really, really important that Pimento hear your views, because that guides and shapes what they can deliver better to you in 2021. So starting from the top left box, key stats. So I'll leave you to read some of those, but as I said, 34% response rate and an overall average score. It's a really good news story for Pimento in 2020. It was 86%, and that's based on all the weighted questions where you could choose a very happy through to, frankly, unhappy. And then 85% of members scored a score of 80% or more. So really, really good news story. And 1 in 5 members gave us maximum score of 100%. And they actually came from some of the longer term members. And so delving into the background behind this, because of course, each question we asked, we gave you the opportunity to give a comment, and then we could cut and splice the data by length of tenure of membership and membership type. It seems those that have been with Pimento for 2, 5, 10 years are the happiest. And we looked behind that and felt that when you first join, in the first 6 months, it's probably a case of finding your feet and working out what the value of this is all going to give you. And I think when you get to 12 months, you start to see, and our advice always to members when we're working with membership organisations is you get out that you put in. And that's particularly been the case, I think, during COVID times where everything's gone online. Those that have really stepped up and made the contact, made meetings happen, followed up after events like this, picking up with people like Ollie, it can really do build great dividends for your business. And we saw that very clearly through the survey. So those that have stayed for a long time have really worked out how to get the value from Pimento. So going on to events, and so one of the comments, I'll just pick out some of the really lovely comments that have come through, and I will share some warts and all as well, so beware. So one person said, you acted very quickly and nimbly in the response to COVID, and we see here 91% said you responded really well. It seemed to be the first initiative of its kind and was great. It not only helped me feel like I wasn't alone, it gave me a sense of much needed working rhythm as I was rebalancing in the lockdown. Like many, I was unable to furlough. So really nice kind of someone responding that Pimento helped them through those early stages particularly. So events, we asked for your ideas of what it is you're looking for next year. And of course, we don't really know when we're going to get back to full in real life, but 15 ideas were sourced, different types of ideas. And the top 3, we split those down and they were senior client perspectives, always very popular, sector specific deep dives. I think the one on retail and automotive went down particularly well this year. But also picking up on Ollie's point, mental health and well-being, any support around that is always gratefully received and a lot of interest around that. We asked about the annual conference. I think 2/3 of you are happy to come back and would say you're likely or quite likely to come to an in real life event, but around 1 in 7 saying, not sure, just waiting, the jury is out, and that's completely understandable. So again, our advice perhaps to Pimento is, yes, press on and try and get a real life event together, but perhaps have it streamed so that you can answer those who perhaps are still shielding, haven't had vaccinations and want to stay put. But good to have a sense, a pulse check of that sentiment. The Pimento portal, I think this is the area where there's probably more work to be done. And I think against the Rolls Royce of all the positive comment that you've received as a membership leadership team, the portal is probably where the work needs to be done. It feels a bit more like the rustier car in the lineup. And 40% of you said you'd like a refresher on how best to use it. Because really, if you see it like the shop window for your own business, I'm not sure everybody's really working that hard, and I'm guilty of that. I've let it fall off the back end. But there is definitely room for improvement on how to make it easier. And I think people have got experience of perhaps other membership orgs or portals they're part of where they feel the searchability is better. So one of the comments on that was, I'm pretty confident about using it, but would be interested to hear from the horse's mouth if I'm missing any tips or tricks. And then someone said, I'm being blunt, the portal could be improved, so taking feedback might be useful. So anybody that's got particular ideas around that creative, we're all a creative bunch, please feed them back to the team beyond this survey. It's good to hear and your experience of it. Communication, 91% happy with the frequency of comms. And of course, there's going to be a few who think that there's basically too much communication, but that's, I think, a better balance to have 91% saying they're happy with the frequency. People have said they feel like a valued member of the group and comms is two-way and frequent enough. One suggested perhaps there was too many reminders about the Wednesday meeting. One reminder would be enough, and it seems a bit overdone, but generally the sense is Pimento are pitching it, that is right. And the quality of comms at 94%, up from 2019 by 19 percentage points. So fantastic job. I haven't seen that across all membership organisations we've been working with. There have been some real patchy, slow, lumbering, Titanic type response to COVID. But I've seen Pimento being viewed as very fleet of foot. So congratulations there. Bottom left box, value of the Pimento network. We asked, what is it that you most enjoy, benefit from it? And this is something you could talk to if you're trying to get referrals. These are the top 3 points. Obviously referrals and referrals commission. We all like the pounds in the bank. Networking, absolutely critical and crucial. And again, reiterating that point, the more you put into it, the more you'll get out and better relationships you can establish. And collaboration with like-minded agencies. And I think we've seen that across the Wednesday calls over 35 weeks now, I believe. Some fabulous collaborations have been hatched as a result of seeing each other on screen. Recommendation. Let me just give you a comment on the value of Pimento Network first. It takes a while to find the right partners, but when you do, it really works. So again, that's that point. In the first 6 to 12 months, I think the happiness levels are slightly lower than those that have stayed the course and seen that value. It's what Pimento is all about: contact, comms, and shared specializations. Without a knowledgeable DP, many of the other attributes or services would be difficult to achieve. So again, this the relationship with your DP, and we'll come on to that, is important. DP, PD. Recommendation. So 80%, 8 out of 10 would recommend Pimento to their clients, and similarly 80% would recommend to agencies and consultancies. So that's a very high score. And again, in other member orgs, I think the aggregate that we're seeing around the moment is more like 72%. So again, you're beating that aggregate. Partner directors and referrals, 9 out of 10 rated PDs as really or quite good. And those that had any disgruntlement, I think they were very early in, and there's been some teething issues, and that probably is 1 or 2 people, and I know conversations have happened since. So really strong. I haven't seen anything that concerns me on that front. And a comment there saying they're good guys, feel like they look after us. Of course, they want to make income from us, but genuinely feel they're there to help our business too. Great to work with. We work with Steve, but also got leads from Simon, Brett, Andy, Dave from time to time. It's right that it's this fluid. So really nice that directors aren't working in silos. They're seeing that they can cross-reference and cross-sell, if you will, but that it's a real team effort. And I know there's a lot of information shared between partner directors. So great on that front. And I think professional services, rather like the Pimento portal, that's probably where there's more work to be done. They're the 2 weaker spots in the whole portfolio. I think, not that I'm criticising the professional services, but just the awareness of them and the uptake of them. And again, thinking about that, it might well be that the kind of agencies that are attracted to Pimento are quite well established and might well have very good relationships with their existing accountancy, HR, law firms. But I would urge you to look at perhaps overcoming any inertia you've got around your existing suppliers, and do look closely at what Pimento's professional services can offer, because there are preferential rates, and of course it's great to be supporting each other as members. But yes, 88% haven't used any as yet. So there's some work, I think, there to do for Pimento itself to make that easier, more accessible, and perhaps more opportunities to showcase what they can do. Someone says quite rightly, we're inundated with professional service offering. This isn't why I joined. We value the opportunities to win and refer work. But I think it's just, there's some inertia there, and I think professional services firms who are members could perhaps look at how they can better represent themselves. So they were the top line findings. As I say, there's a deck that sits behind this, and then of course all the verbatim comments, and your partner directors are in possession of those. So if you've got any questions or any concerns about how we've represented your views, then please do holler. But I hope that gives you a good flavour, and that you know you're part of a very strong membership organisation. And my counsel to you, and as a member I say it myself, is that the more you put into it, the more you'll benefit from it in 2021. So thank you. I will stop sharing the screen.
Great, thank you very much, Annabelle. So 2 very different presentations, but excellent insights and feedback, and hopefully useful for all of you today. I'd like to open up the opportunity for any questions. First of all, on the presentation given by Ollie, any views you have, any ideas, any thoughts behind 2021? Obviously, there's a mountain of data behind the top line that Ollie prepared and presented today. So if you've got any specific questions, then please feel free to ask Ollie. And likewise too, we have no issues with any questions you might want to pose regarding Pimento and its membership, either from members or indeed for guests or would-be members who are on today's call. So now's your chance to ask questions to both of our presenters, but equally too, if you want to ask questions of the partner directors, they're all on today's call, of myself or any other member of the Pimento team. I really would encourage you to get involved today. We've got 20 minutes, which is an absolute luxury. I don't think we've ever been in this situation, but we specifically built it into today's end of term or end of year session. So David, I don't know whether you have any questions. I think you just put something up. I'm just seeing if you need any help on software, hardware and cybersecurity, remember our pro service member, Julius. Yeah, I mean, we will be relaunching the professional services proposition in the new year. And I do accept that some of the feedback we got from members, which is one, we didn't know we actually had a bunch of professional services. It's a little known benefit that we don't actually make enough of. We have a catalogue that has all of the professional services and all the members within that. So what we will be doing is we'll be relaunching that in the new year and re-promoting it. As was suggested by Annabelle, all of our professional services members give preferential rates to the Pimento membership, and they are varied from finance for growth, legal services, accountancy services, debt collection services, and the unlikely event that that client doesn't pay you. We have a professional company in that space, but it also includes IT support, web housing, consultancy, both new business consultancy and management consultancy for our agency, and HR, outsourced HR resources and so on, and many much more besides. I think we've got something like 30 different members in that space offering a very broad range of services. So if that's of interest to you, then please feel free to engage with them. Well, as I say, we'll be promoting it and relaunching it in the new year. Not for everyone. You know, if you're a decent sized agency, you've probably got in-house HR, but if you are growing your business and you need support on growth, you need specific services or you get into trouble, it's nice to know you've got people you can fall back on there. Mr. Palmer, I'm going to come to you so you can ask your question direct. Let's see you. Ah, there you are. Found you. Looks like you're about slipping out for a game of golf later on. Is that right?
I've got a golf lesson at 1, actually.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Good to hear it. So, Mark, sorry, you had a question.
Yeah, given I bothered to fill the, the crap government campaign, sorry if anybody's a Brexiter, that says, get ready for Brexit, and they spent millions on it. And then I bothered to fill the form in, and the only piece of information I discovered that it is now going to take me 4 months to take my dog abroad. I'm just wondering if there's any stats on quite how many businesses feel completely out on a limb of not knowing what to do practically, functionally. Is there any 80% think they don't know what to do? Tariffs. I know enough businesses I know are completely in limbo, no idea how to plan, forecast, price. I wonder if there's any stats, any of the research on it.
Yeah, I haven't got anything kind of on top of my head on it. I think one thing I would say though is, they're looking at those figures for kind of whether people think industries and their business will grow or decline next year. I think that is not likely to be just a reflection of COVID. I think there's just a huge amount of uncertainty for people. I think Brexit, and maybe not for businesses, but in many ways, Brexit has been forgotten about for a lot of this year with COVID, and obviously it's come back recently, but even then it's still not getting kind of as much coverage as it would do if COVID wasn't around. We still don't know if we're getting a deal. So I think there's a huge amount of uncertainty for businesses, because even if we do, then what does that mean? And what do the businesses have to do? All of this stuff, I think, is probably quite scary for a lot of businesses, and that alongside uncertainty over how long it's going to take to emerge from COVID, really, I think is impacting on people's kind of optimism for the year ahead. But I will have a dig around and see if I have got anything particularly on that, then I'll get in touch with Stephen if I do.
The reason I mention it, I think there's a large amount of the political and media that doesn't get businesses. So I was chatting to someone the other day who's in the sort of well-being area. One of the things it means on packaging is they've now got to have a designated person approving what they're doing on their packaging in the EU. Everybody has. And they only found this out last week. And the same with, there's just stacks and stacks of, I don't know what prices are. I don't know where to get it. I've got somebody else who I know runs a fragrance and oils company. Well, where do I get Tuscan oil from? And there's just billions of common day practical issues that no one knows. I talked to a mobile operator. What's my tariff for next year? Can't tell you. I just think there's just loads of practical things that no one, because governments don't think that way or media doesn't think that way, the real world of what's going on with a business.
Yeah. I think it's the whole uncertainty point driving that, to be honest. But I'll have a look specifically if there's anything we've asked about, kind of, do businesses know what they need to do? Because we may have, but I haven't got it on top of my head.
We might ask the other question, do they think the government survey is of any use? Because it's absolutely useless. It's a piece of nonsense. Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, actually, a good point you make there, Mark. And I think actually, in a way, COVID has actually obviously saved the government, both in terms of shielding Brexit from our attention, but equally too, the fact that actually none of us can actually travel abroad freely at the moment means that actually some of those really important things, like, as you say, can I take my dog abroad? The fact that actually you can't get any insurance cover at the moment if you want to travel into Europe. The fact that there isn't clarity around what you can and can't bring into the UK, all of those things. I mean, there is literally no time now to get that communication together, to get it out to businesses. Most businesses, I think, will be closing at the end of next week and taking extended break over Christmas. And whether we do or don't get a deal between now and then, and how that's going to be communicated both on an industry basis and to the nation as a whole, no chance. I mean, it's going to be messy. Either if we get a deal, if we don't get a deal, and confusion will reign, I'm afraid. Okay, another question. Andrew Smith, sir. This is less to do with Europe, more to do with the United States, I believe. Where are you?
It is. Stephen, just wanted to start by saying really well done for what you've done this year. It's been a pleasure coming back into the fold, and you've done very well. And thank you also to Oliver and Annabelle. They were both really interesting presentations. Oliver, was all of the data that you were talking about there UK based? And I just wondered, most of our clients are US based, so I wondered if you saw kind of any trends with the US markets as well.
Yeah, so this particular tracker is based in the UK, and we've not run something quite the same in the US. I did just see your question pop up in the chat box. I just had a quick look on our website. So we have got a team in the US, and they have done some of their own polling. So again, what I can do is just find a couple of these articles and send them on to Stephen afterwards. I think the one I've pulled up here is basically just saying that I think there's the announcement on the vaccines at the moment has not really kind of given Americans any kind of real optimism about the future, whether that's about reopening schools, whether that's about getting back to the office, whether that's to do with economic health. Only sort of 1 in 5 are starting to feel a bit more optimistic about all of those things, even with the vaccine news. I think, again, as we keep being told, there's a long way to go. And I think in the US, it's, okay, 100 million doses in the first 100 days will be quite a good achievement for a sort of first 100 days for anybody. But I think the path to getting there seems quite uncertain for people. But I'll dig out and see if there's anything else which might be relevant for the US.
Great, thank you. I mean, our kind of experience is that most definitely reflecting that the problem in the US is is kind of all consuming at the moment, but marketing kind of goes on regardless. I mean, if anything, they put a bit kind of greater emphasis on marketing. Market your way out or something is much more of an attitude that's prevalent in the US, we find.
Thanks, Andy. Simon, hi. Morning.
Hello. Morning.
Question for you, Armand.
Oh, for me?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I know we all spend an awful lot of time communicating, talking, catching up with our members on a weekly basis. And I believe in the last week or so, we've been obviously thinking about next year. What's the sort of sentiment you're getting from the members that you've spoken to?
I think generally with the news about the vaccine, people are seeing that there's a way out. I think, some of the things that's been talked about, from the survey, that, a lot of businesses have perhaps lost confidence in the government as well as general consumers. And I think, linked also to Mark's comments about Brexit, that there's a general feeling in business, be it Brexit or be it COVID, that they haven't had very clear direction or guidance. And then sometimes it's been difficult to give, particularly on the COVID thing, but there seems to be a sort of mutual frustration between government and a lot of businesses, in terms of government are just sort of saying, well, we're working at it, just prepare. And business are going, well, we can't prepare when you can't tell us what we should be preparing for. And there's a bit of a standoff and a mutual hostility there. But I think, going back to your general point, I think with the vaccine announcement, there's, say, a feeling that there's almost a route out that people can now see, in terms of getting back to something like the way it used to be before COVID struck. And there is a feeling that if we can get through January, we get to deal or no deal, but at least a clear resolution with Brexit, in terms of what the new normal from a trading point of view is, and what that means, and people can then actually get on and do things. I think the government's view is that businesses will find a way, and I think businesses' view is that yes, we will find a way, but we need to know what the parameters are before we actually start throwing a huge amount of money at things. But if they can get some sort of resolution there, and the vaccine programme accelerates with the authorisation of the Oxford and vaccine and other ones, that they can see a way out, which is giving them more confidence to plan. I think that's the general feeling. I think there was a bit of a sort of in September, October, when the second spike started. I think there was almost a tired frustration that, oh my word, we're going back into it again after a bit of a bounce through the summer, which reflects the confidence stats that we saw. But now with the vaccine news and some sort of resolution in the next few weeks in terms of Brexit, people are feeling that, okay, we can regroup in the new year with a bit more certainty and plan around that.
Thank you. As a build on that, Brett, someone obviously very much in touch with the hospitality, leisure and travel sector. Are you seeing any green shoots?
Yes, we're starting to do. I mean, the last 4 weeks hasn't helped the UK domestic market, as most restaurants and hotels have had to go back into lockdown. Overseas international travel, again, obviously at this moment in time, with quarantine, is challenging. However, what we are seeing is a significant pent-up demand for travel, and when markets do reopen, we're seeing passengers move quite quickly to be able to make bookings. So you may remember back in end of October, November, that sort of the Canary Islands reopened, and in the space of sort of 2 weeks, there was a significant rush of UK nationals trying to book holidays to Tenerife for Q4, to only then sort of get the brakes put back on with going into full lockdown. And similarly, 2 weeks ago, Dubai was one of the first international markets to come off the quarantine list, and we've seen demand shoot through the roof for people wanting to travel to Dubai for Christmas and the New Year. So I think that this year, certainly for the travel and hospitality sector, has been one of the worst hit. Green shoots are appearing, and I think once we get through the Q1 of vaccinations, then I think Q2, Q3 could be quite buoyant for, I think everybody is desperate for a holiday. So in terms of the markets that will bounce back, I think travel is probably well suited for it next year.
For people that would ideally like to get away over Christmas, and currently obviously we're being told that only travel is essential, you can't get insurance, can you, if you want to go to Europe?
There are a couple. There are a couple of insurers out there that will give you insurance, and 2 new policies have come out, which will provide COVID cover for Europe and long haul. they're new on the market in the last couple of weeks. And in terms of the markets that are open for Christmas, then Madeira and Tenerife in the short haul market, Dubai and the Maldives in the long haul market, together with St. Lucia in the Caribbean. So there's kind of 5 markets that are available for UK nationals this Christmas, where you don't have to quarantine on the way back.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Patrick, I mean, nearer to home, agencies, what should they be doing now for the revival and the opportunities in the early new year?
I have to apologise. I've got my daughter having lunch. She's self-isolating at the moment. But I think from an agency's perspective, I think it's carry on much as more, but you've got to bring value to what you're doing and talking to clients, understanding what challenges they're facing to really help drive sort of relevant conversations, relevant messaging, relevant content to them so that they can feel they're getting engaged and sort of by prospective agencies that they might want to talk to in 2021.
Okay, and in terms of and you've been talking to quite a few of our members in the last few weeks in your new role as Head of Business Development at Pimento, what sense are you getting from agencies in terms of what their priorities are?
I think a lot of it is looking at what I say everyone's talking about purpose, but understanding what their purpose is to clients and understanding, redefining who they are, what they stand for, is coming key as they start to look at differentiating themselves again for 2021.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paddy. Quick introduction for you there. David, a couple of questions I make. One, obviously, your particular specialism is the automotive category. This year's been pretty hideous for car manufacturers in the UK. Sales results haven't been obviously what they would hope for. Do you sense any recovery in the automotive category in the near term?
Well, I think one of the main issues is what will happen with Brexit. I had an experience a couple of weeks ago. I don't know why I bothered, but I did go for a frivolous moment, go and have a look at a new car. And I was quoted, but if I had signed the order form, I had to sign a disclaimer that I would possibly be expected to pay an extra 10% if there was a no Brexit deal. So that already the car manufacturers are asking their dealers for you to sign. You can cancel the order, you can walk away, but if you wanted to carry through and there was that 10% uplift, you have to take it on the chin. So I think, cars coming from Europe into the UK, if we don't get a Brexit deal, could be 10% more expensive. So that's the first thing. That's the direct thing that's impacted on me. I think just following on from the conversations we've had on other areas, I think, in terms of the pro services side, I think everybody, I always put it on the footer of my emails. I think more members need to go out and have a look at the services we've got there. We've got some great people. And basically, it's been an interesting year, and let's just hope that 2021 is going to be a better one.
Indeed, I think we'd all second that one. And last question, if I may, I'm going to bring in one of our members, David Price. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Morning. Very good. Thanks, Stephen.
Jolly good. Listen, I've just seen some figures that have just been released, actually, whilst we've been on this call, so I'm really putting you on the spot here. But as always. But last year, apparently, was the worst ever global media market. The wholesale decline, or this year we're in rather, has been the worst ever year that they've reported. There is some suggestion that the media market will return in 2021 with a potentially 6% increase in spend. I just wonder what your clients are saying and the feeling you're getting from both the agencies that you work with as well as obviously your clients.
Yeah, I think budgets will return somewhat next year, but we're really looking at 2022 for probably budget levels to get back to 2019 levels, to be honest. And it really depends on the agency owners you speak to. As to the variance in the fluctuation in terms of decline or positive results that they're looking at for next year. In terms of our business, 2/3 of our clients are doing pretty well, considering the challenges that they've been through this year and what's ahead next year. I was particularly interested in the arts and entertainment stats, which I think Oliver showed earlier. And we're predicting, H2 to see any sort of recovery, in that market. But I think overall, next year, yeah, of course, it will be, a positive recovery of sorts, but you're talking 2022. And also, if you look at Mintel stats, consumer spending has fallen off a cliff, as we all know, this year, and you're looking at a 5-year recovery. So, leisure, retail, travel, significant hits, and it's going to take a while for things to recover. And I think also, looking at the way agencies operate, that's changed forever. We've moved to a mixed working model earlier in the year anyway. But things have undoubtedly changed. We're taking a positive spin on it, to be honest, for next year. But it's going to be a long recovery. It's going to be a really long recovery.
Thank you very much for that contribution. I absolutely agree there. But I think one thing it has shown this year is how resilient we all are, how we've had to adapt, how we've had to basically put our clients at the heart of what we do and create new products and new services and to support them. And I think the fact that as independent agencies we're able to do that and we're able to do it quickly is both to the benefit of us as agency owners as well as obviously our clients. I'd like to thank all of our presenters this year. I think we've had over 100 people across the year who've attended this particular midweek event, 1,800 people in total. Along with the Alliance and the PRCA and our guests and member events, we promoted over 300 events across that period with over 7,500 people in attendance. The plan for 2021 is more of the same. We've got an amazing lineup of speakers. I shared with my team last night a list of events that we want to run next year. We've also reflected on the survey feedback we got on the events, the sorts of events you like, the sorts of people you like to hear from. We really would encourage you to engage, get involved, put yourself forward. If you've got something to say and you believe that people out there want to hear it, then do let me know, because we're very keen to get as many of our members featured across the year to create engagement and opportunities for each of you. 2020, I guess, is a year that we could have all done without, but it's certainly a year that we're not going to forget. And I'd like to thank you all for your continued support throughout this year. Let's hope and wish for a healthier and more prosperous 2021. Look after yourselves and look after your family and have an amazing Christmas. Speak to you all soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Yeah.